All right, here we are. Here we are. We've been excited for this one. Really been loving the MLB Draft prep that the Baseball Unstitched team has been doing. Shout out to Jackson, who is on vacation. The Wi-Fi just isn't good enough to have him here, sadly, and we're
No.
definitely disappointed to not have our third man on the live today. But we've been counting down for you guys our top 30 big board, and it's finally time for us to reveal the top 10 of our big board. Go through how we feel about each of these guys, and Flax, I can't say I'm not excited. That's for sure.
There's something just about going and watching people play and watching highlight tapes that I love doing. Partially just because I love assessing baseball and baseball players and seeing what guys have to offer. And so this was a fun process for us. We worked all the way down from, 50 players down to our top 30. We went through, 30 to 21 last 2 weeks ago on the podcast. And then we worked through 20 to 11 down on last week's podcast episode. And realizing the timing of when we decided to start doing this, we thought it made more sense to give you our top 10 before the draft rather than next Tuesday after said draft. So here we are, getting ready for a live show top 10 reveal across our big board.
Yep. So first and foremost, guys, I think it would be good if we did this, and I'm going to grab it, Flax, while maybe you give some more commentary. But why don't we go ahead real quick and give everybody the breakdown of where we are and how we got here. And we're going to run you guys through number 30 to number 11 here real quick. At number 30 on our big board, Gavin Thien. At number 29, Max Ballou. At number 28, Patrick Forbes. At number 27, Quentin Young. At number 26, Gage Wood. At number 25, Caden Bodine. At number 24, Riley Quick. At number 23, Steele Hall. At number 22, JoJo Parker. At number 21, Andrew Fisher. At number 20, Xavier Nyans. At number 19, Billy Carlson. At number 18, Brendan Summerhill. At number 17, Jack Bauer. At number 16, Alex Lodice. At number 15, Daniel Pierce. At number 14, Merrick Houston. At number 13, Ike Irish. At number 12, Kyson Witherspoon. And at number 11, Cruz Schoolcraft. Why are we running through those names? Well, we want to make sure you guys aren't expecting anybody to show up who might not, simply because we already talked about them. If you do want to hear our thoughts on the rest of these guys, take a look at our threads on Twitter and or go over and take a listen to the podcast. Over the last 2 weeks, we've broken down all of those players. Flax, how do you want to get this running, my friend? You've done a great job putting this together.
Well, I figure we'll start with number 10, work our way down. And as we go through each guy, we'll give you guys our thoughts on the player itself and then how we kind of came to our decision. But I will give this caveat before we even get going, because there were a ton of really good high school prospects and a lot of really good college prospects. And this year in the college game was the year of the college shortstop. There were a ton of guys that played above the level of expectation and really rose their name across a lot of draft boards and especially ours. And we are, as we've said on the podcast numerous times, we are fairly partial towards guys that have been doing it a little longer, guys that have proven it at a little bit of a higher level, guys that are going to take a little less time to get to that next level, get to the big leagues, if teams are going to make that top 10 investment financially in those players. So not to say that there aren't high schoolers in this, and not to say that we don't love our high school shortstops and our high school hitters, but there's a level at which they may have worked their way further down the line just because of some of the way the college shortstops played across the board. So with that, we are now a full 11 minutes into this week's stream. I figure we get it going and reveal number 10.
Let's do it.
So number 10 on the board, Tyler Bremner. Tyler Bremner, right-handed pitcher out of UC Santa Barbara. I'll start with this around Bremner. Coming into the college season, this guy was a potential top 3 pick. I would say that he started a little slow, picked it up in the middle of the year, And UC Santa Barbara as a team, I think, didn't make as much noise as we expected, which led to him maybe not getting the same visibility as others. But make no mistake, the stuff is there. The stuff is there for sure. It's very good. It's very exciting to watch. Tall body, throws very hard downhill. Ryan, I know you watched a little bit on him. What did you like most about Bremner's stuff, about his action, about kind of his pitch mix when you got to watch him throw?
Yeah, listen, you got to start with the fact that Bremner possesses a true power fastball. The ride-run movement on it, I think, is really big. A guy that comes to mind when I watch him throw his fastball and the way it's going to get utilized at the next level and did in college would be a Brian Wu. Ton of ride, ton of arm side run, which just makes it so difficult for hitters to square up no matter what, especially when he's got a 19 IVB and a 13 horizontal break to the arm side while also throwing 95 to 98. As this becomes a more polished fastball at the next level, when he's doing nothing but truly playing baseball, I think you're going to see a guy that's got a dominant fastball that can be thrown, 40 to 60% of the time as needed. He spots it well, and he did in college. I think the other piece that I look at with him, with his best offering overall, is going to end up being the changeup. It had a 48% whiff rate this year. It has absolutely elite arm side run and plays so well against the ride run fastball that is already a good 10 miles an hour harder on a regular basis. He also throws a slider that he threw about 15% of the time. It can at times play like a little bit of a baby cutter, but at the end of the day, when you look at Bremner, you're looking at that fastball changeup combo and a guy who has a propensity to spin the baseball. And we expect to see a more consistent offering on that third to fourth pitch, potentially even breaking out a cutter and a slider. His stuff is excellent. And throwing in there from Jackson literally stated that his changeup is his favorite pitch in this entire draft.
When you look at the way a guy that stands 6'2", 190 throws with a power fastball, the changeup, which is scouts are grading as a 65 right now already, against a 65 rated fastball, is no shock that it is getting the whiffs that it gets. He throws downhill. When you throw downhill, it's very hard for hitters to lift the ball. It also means that it's working on the same plane as that changeup is moving. And if the changeup is diving versus the fastball that's riding, which I know that he can ride that fastball at the bottom of the zone, it's a deadly combination, especially against left-handed hitters, which for some right-handed pitchers can kind of be their nemesis a lot of the time, because they tend to work more of a breaking ball mix. So I like Bremner's stuff. We put him at number 10 because we felt that as far as some of the other arms in the draft, some of the other position players in the draft, there's still a little bit of work left to do to get to the next level, but he's absolutely enough of an investment to expect that change and that growth to be pretty quick. So I like him that high.
Bremner's another one of those college arms who, and I always make this joke every year, you look at the college arms taken, and there's always two or three guys who you say, yeah, when he's the first guy up there, it's really not going to surprise me from an arms perspective. And Bremner's going to be a guy who could very quickly elevate himself through an organization. I look at the way Chase Dolander rose up quickly through the Rockies organization.
Well, spots were open.
Well, you're right. But at the same time, normally when you're picking in the top 10, spots are open.
Yeah, you're right. Spots are open.
I think that's a good way for us to put it is if you see Bremner in a major league uniform early to middle of next year, I wouldn't be too surprised. His fastball changeup combo is good enough. And then again, once it's about nothing but baseball, which it is to a point now, but we want to remind everybody that once you get to the next level and you're getting paid, it's a whole different animal.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're going to see some consistency out of whatever they do with his quote-unquote spin, and it's going to be really fun to watch how those pitches develop.
I love Jackson's in chat. He said Bremner and his changeup to the moon.
Thank you, Jackson.
Anybody out there, if you have comments, thoughts, if you're curious as we go through this why certain guys are higher or lower than you'd expect them to be, please feel free to throw it in the chat. Please feel free to give us your thoughts. And, if you're joining after we read through the names of the top 30 and you're curious why other guys aren't on this list of top 10, throw their name out there. We'll tell you where they ended up on our list. We'll tell you why they ended up there on our list. We'll be here for a little bit going through all this, so don't worry, all your questions will be answered. On to number 9, and that's Kason Cunningham. Kason Cunningham, high school shortstop out of Texas. He is currently committed to Texas, and you and I, Ryan, watched some video on him, and there's a lot to like here. It feels like a fairly polished high school infielder.
Yeah, Cunningham has gotten a little bit of a knock on his size and his just overall look. I think that's a little bit overblown. I don't really love that as a guy who in high school was 5'6", throwing relatively hard for that size. I never like when size comes into play. He's got an absolute sweet left-handed swing, very short and quick to the baseball, knows how to deliver the barrel. There's no level of which either that he sits around and says, I'm going to hit to my size. Cunningham has true pop for a guy that is under 6 foot. But the other piece you get with him is a true 5-tool player. He's got very solid, slightly above average speed. He can play anywhere you needed to in the outfield. And in my opinion, he's a guy who can stick at shortstop and might have a much better glove than evaluators are giving him credit for at that spot. Good feel. Another guy who comes from a baseball family. His father was a former pro. Cunningham.
Do you see him potentially moving to a corner spot?
No. For me, I would Kason Cunningham.
Sorry, outfield corner spot.
No. To me, he's playing shortstop until he proves otherwise. I love his glove up the middle. I think he's got the arm to do it. There's absolutely no question about that. He grades out, in my opinion, at a 55 or even a 60 arm. So, yeah, could you move that to a corner outfield spot? Great. But he's got great feel defensively up the middle, and I think it could potentially be as good as any of these other high school shortstops, maybe other than one or two. But I'm a huge fan of Cunningham.
I asked the question because and I said this to you when we were watching this video, he glides. He glides around the field. And I think about some other guys that are younger that they don't strike you as the fastest. But when you see them get to balls in the outfield or you see them get to balls in the hole as an infielder, you realize how much ground they pick up with such smooth movements. Yeah. The only reason I ask about him moving to a corner outfield spot is if the bat's good enough and he's taken by an organization that has a plethora of infielders, it feels to me like he has the athleticism to make the move if need be, which isn't always the case.
So one of the things that I love about the way we evaluate our boards is I don't think you'll ever see the Baseball Unstitched group put a high school shortstop into the top 10 who couldn't move to multiple other positions on the field. And Cunningham is no different, is probably the best way for me to put that for us in general is that, we're going to talk about another high school shortstop sooner than later who's no different than that. And Cunningham is not an exception to that rule for me.
Well, I give the example of number 30 on our board was Gavin Feen. Gavin Feen's comp for me as a hitter and as a player was Michael Kadire. Michael Kadire, for those who don't know, was drafted as a shortstop and a pitcher. Michael Kadire did not play shortstop at the big league level. Played corner infield, played corner outfield. It's not that these guys don't have the ability to play up the middle, but that level of athleticism at the big leagues is just head and shoulders above what you expect. And sometimes we don't even notice it because of how good these guys are day in and day out. But yeah, I was a big fan of Kason Cunningham. I want to talk about the swing a little bit. It's very smooth, very long through the zone, but not long in a way that the barrel drags, but long in a way that it stays there a long time. He stays inside the ball well. It's the kind of swing that you see and you're like, this guy plays a lot of baseball. This guy spends the majority of his days focused on honing this craft. And that's not a bad thing, right? That is, in a lot of ways, that's a good thing. I'm curious when he gets into the cages with development guys at the next level, how much they try and mess around with trying to get a little bit more pop out of his bat, just given his size. And I don't say that in a way that he doesn't have pop now. It's like, that seems to be the progression. It's like, oh, you got a sub 6 foot guy. You got a 6 foot guy that's 170. What are we going to do to get more pop out of his swing? What are we going to change here to get a little bit more from his body? I don't think that Cunningham needs that.
Nope.
But I will be very interested to see how his swing changes and evolves over the next couple of years post-draft as he starts working with some of these developmental coaches with that focus. I've told you numerous times, like, you talk to anybody that goes from high school to pro ball, and they'll tell you, like, at pro ball, they teach you how to hit home runs. They teach you how to get a little bit more whip on the barrel, how to get the bat out front, how to square the ball up a different way. It's not that these are secrets that they don't share. It's hard to teach that to everybody. You got to have some intangible skill set to be able to actually put that into practice. So, okay, on to number 8. Number 8, Eli Willits. So we have another high school shortstop off the board here out of our top 30. And at number 8, Eli Willits comes with, first of all, professional baseball pedigree. His father, Reggie Willits, played for the Angels in the big leagues. He is now the associate head coach at Oklahoma, where his brother, Jackson Willits, thank you, plays currently a very, very good baseball school, as we all know. Eli Willits, to me, again, very polished, does things the right way. But when you watch his game, it's so simplified that it looks like he came out of the womb playing baseball this way. Like, there was never a thought that there was a different way to do it. And it's very rudimentary, very by the book. And he makes it look so smooth and non-robotic, but it is so consistently the same thing every single time. And that's a good way to have success, if I would say so myself.
Yeah, listen, you're talking about right now, in my opinion, Willits is one of the best all-around athletes in this draft, but what he possesses that most other guys don't have is he has more infield range than probably anybody in this draft from an overall standpoint. He's the type of guy who's going to play literally everywhere on the diamond for you at a plus level, outside of maybe behind the dish. And look, he might be able to do that too. Who knows? But you are getting a guy who understands what it takes to be a big league ball player from a work ethic perspective due to the pedigree behind him. On the flip side, he's a switch hitter with very, very high levels of whip in his swing, does a great job of making sure his bat tip allows him to time things properly and then really whip the barrel through the zone, something I'm going to let you talk about more. But the biggest thing for me about Willits, again, is every high school shortstop is a project, no matter how polished you think they might be. Jackson Holliday has even showed that to us in not a negative way. It's just the truth. Willits possesses everything you could ask for. He's got ungodly amounts of range and great feel as a defender. He's got plus speed, and he's a switch hitter. It's hard not to like you with a guy like this. And he's got great feel to hit at a young age already, with potential 15 to 20 home run upside as he continues to grow and get more sizable.
We watched his batting practice from a couple different angles and from both sides of the plate, and I don't know that there were any, and if there were, it was very few balls that he hit that he did not stay inside the baseball. When you're younger and you're taught how to hit a baseball, the first two things you get taught is you stay inside the baseball and you generate backspin. Those are two things that help you hit the ball from gap to gap. And as soon as you get a little stronger and you learn how to elevate the ball, that's what turns into home runs. I think given his size and given his ability to backspin a baseball already, I'd feel comfortable with him seeing high levels of pitching because of how simplified, again, his swing is. Same with his defense, same with the way he throws the ball. It's all so simplified that it doesn't have enough going on to jar it loose and give him trouble as the competition gets tougher and tougher. That's why he's been so good up to this point. The swing is very short to the ball. Barrel stays through the zone for a long time. Very good at squaring it up. It just looks comfortable, right? There's nothing about it that looks like he's working very hard. I always like to say, when you go to a Major League Baseball game, one of my favorite things to do is watch guys play catch, because it never looks like the same game of catch that you see on a high school field. Whether it's because you see balls clanging against chain link fences, versus just hitting each other in the chest. These guys could be out to 120 feet and it never looks like they're trying hard. And the ball floats out of their hand, stays head high the entire time, and hits their guy in the chest. The importance of being able to do that is so understated because of how commonplace it is in the game. And watching him take ground balls comparatively to even say Casey Cunningham or Billy Carlson, some of these other high school age shortstops, Xavier Nyans, he never looks like he's trying hard, but it always just zips out of his hand right to the first baseman. On backhand plays in the hole, balls up the middle. He does a great job of using his body to throw the ball. And again, these are just commonplace things that you expect out of a big leaguer. And the fact that at 18 he's already doing those things screams volumes to me of what his ceiling is as a defender. And I said this to you before that I genuinely think my player comp to him and what I think all things go well, his ceiling looks very similar to Corey Seager to me. And that's 2022 to 2024 Corey Seager, where he's truly healthy for 3 straight years, puts out 30-plus bombs, and plays a really solid shortstop.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see with the pop. I think that's the biggest question mark around him is he a 15 to 20 home run guy? Is he a 10 to 15 home run guy? Or are we going to see a 25-plus bopper? With the feel that he hits with, it's not going to surprise me when we're tipping the higher ends of the scale here. The bigger thing, too, for everybody to recognize is he might be sitting at number 8 on our board, but there's been reports as of last week that Willits is in the conversation at number 1. So this just shows you how baseball works, right? I think Eli Willits is an excellent player, but we do have some guys above him right now, and I think now's a great time for us to move to number 7. Flax, who's sitting at number 7 on our board?
Number 7 on our board, our first college shortstop off the list, Vahiva Aloy out of Arkansas. And I don't know how many people really know his background, but coming out of the state of Hawaii, he was actually ranked in Perfect Game the number 2 overall prospect, I believe. That was another
shortstop on our board.
That was Arquette.
We're not there yet.
Wow, my bad. He went to Sacramento State, showed out, was incredible as a freshman. Him and his brother actually have both worked their way to Arkansas. And then this year, put out 21 bombs, hit 350 in the SEC, won the Golden Spikes Award, got to a place, which these things are all correct. I don't know how I screwed that up. But Vahiva Aloy is one of my favorite players in the draft. There's nothing, I guess, that I saw this year that makes me feel like there's a lot he does wrong on the baseball field. There's a little bit more swing and miss there than I think you'd like, but he kind of plays the game of the power hitting shortstop, which is a little bit different and not oftentimes what people go for. Generally look for someone who's a little bit sturdier with a glove. Not that his was not, but he plays very, very comfortably. And that's something we'll say about probably every single guy that's on this top 10 board. But at the college level, getting yourself into the SEC after not starting there and then taking it to an elevated level once you get to that point is not something everybody does. There are plenty of guys that make their way to the SEC, and there's plenty of guys that make their way into the 7-hole, hit 290, 5 or 6 bombs, make their way through junior and senior year, and then they are done playing baseball. It's not uncommon. Can't tell you how many guys play SEC baseball that don't play professional baseball. He really feels to me like there were some tools that needed to develop. That's coming out of the state of Hawaii, not going to get a lot of recognition, but got himself to a place where he was seen by people and then got a little bit bigger and the game just got a little easier. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, listen, I've been all over him all year long, no different than you. Pop to all sides of the field. This is a guy, too, who the only question mark that people have had was the glove, and that really seems to be due to just some oddly timed decisions by him at the shortstop position in very visible situations. I think he could stick at shortstop when he truly brings back the power hitting second baseman. Hope you caught that on Twitter yesterday from us. I won't be too surprised. He's a guy who's athletic enough to play any of the three positions on the diamond outside of first base. He could play it too, but I think he profiles somewhere between second and third base. I think he's a guy at the next level who could easily have 30 home run pop. The other thing I love about him is that he's one of those guys where there's not a pitch on the planet he can't hit out of the ballpark. It reminds me of watching Vladimir Guerrero hit balls that didn't make sense out on a regular basis.
Senior, yeah.
Yeah, senior, I'm sorry.
Yeah, senior.
Where Aloy is a bit of a free swinger, and we both know it. You brought up his whiff rate, but he's the kind of guy who can hit balls out of the zone a really, really long way and do it somewhat consistently. So when he decides to pull the trigger, I'm pretty okay with it at the moment. We're going to see how that plays at the next level, and that's probably the biggest question mark. But at the end of the day, I think Aloy has earned this spot on our draft board, and there's a lot of teams who, when he's available here, more than likely somewhere between 5 and 10, they're going to be really, licking their lips about it because there's some guys lower in this. There's some teams who are lower than that spot that we're hoping he was going to fall, and that's just not going to happen anymore.
I'm going to ask you the question again. This to me feels like a guy that could play a really solid right field, very similar to what we're seeing Cam Smith do with the Astros right now. Large body, really good arm, very athletic, and a bat that you want in the lineup. In the situation that things are a little jam-packed in the infield for a team, it wouldn't shock me if he got pushed to the outfield, even if just similar to Cam Smith at the big league level. Do you see that as well for a guy like Aloy?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's shown a propensity for growth throughout his career. We talked about where he started, where he is now, and he's another one of those guys for me where at the end of the day, you're taking him within the top 15 of this draft for the bat over everything else, right? Make the Pete Alonso jokes in the offseason, but you're not taking him because he's a great shortstop here. You're taking him because he rakes. And if he rakes in right field, it doesn't make a difference if he's raking at second base, third base, or short. Listen, he's a great athlete. It would surprise me if he could not play a corner outfield position.
I completely agree. Let's move on to number 6. Number 6 on the board, finally, a left-handed arm. And there's a bunch of them in the draft this year, but maybe one of the most psychotic of all, Liam Doyle out of Tennessee. And what a road this guy has had. First out of high school, went to Coastal Carolina, then moved himself to Ole Miss, and really found his footing at Tennessee this year. And again, not stellar stats at Coastal or at Ole Miss, but Frank Anderson, Tony Vitello obviously saw something that they liked when they saw him, and when he went into the portal and they got an opportunity to bring him to Tennessee, and boy did they utilize it. And my guess is what they saw they liked was a top 2 fastball in the country. He throws 97 to 99 from the left side. He used it 75% of the time, and I think behind Gage Wood had the second highest whiff rate on that fastball this year. His stuff is absolutely phenomenal. But you, as our pitching guy, I want to hear your thoughts on Liam Doyle. Because I could talk about Tennessee baseball all day long, but nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear about Liam Doyle specifically and what he's got and what his stuff looks like. So please.
Yeah, no, and again, we want to shout out Jackson Scudder. If you're not following him on Twitter, make sure you do. He's got the in as it pertains to helping us with some of these advanced metrics that we otherwise might not have as much access to. Listen, Doyle's fastball is elite, right? You already said it. I believe the actual numbers, he throws it about 65% of the time, which is such a high usage number. Another guy with 19 plus IVB on that fastball, which means it is absolutely riding at the top of the zone and giving hitters the feel of the ball basically rising. He had a 39% whiff rate on his fastball this year. If you want to know why he threw it 65% of the time, that's ungodly in most scenarios. I mean, what he did on the mound at Tennessee was so impressive. He combos that with a much lower usage of a cutter, slider, and splitter. The next best pitch that he has is a low IVB splitter, which plays well off the fastball. That also had a 40% whiff rate on it. The big question remains with him is you have a lefty with the best, if I would throw out there, I think there's a couple guys with an argument, but he might have the best left-handed fastball in this entire draft at the end of the day. What do you do with the secondary pitches and how does it mix? That's always the question here. But why Liam Doyle is so high to me and so high even on my board with questions about pitches 2, 3, and 4 is Doyle's floor is psycho closer. And I'm talking elite psycho closer. And I say that as a compliment. I love when guys go out and have their hair on fire for a 9th inning. I think the worst you get out of Liam Doyle is that. And that's saying a lot, right? We have a lot of great closers in this league. And if you ended up taking a closer this high who was your guy for 6 to 10 years potentially, you're not going to complain about that pick here in the top 10. But I do expect wherever he goes from a development perspective, them to continue to work on that secondary arsenal and Doyle to absolutely get an opportunity to be a front end guy in somebody's rotation before we ever even have that conversation.
It was a different guy at a different time, and he was a high school arm. But I think very similarly to how the Orioles drafted Josh Hader, right? You're going to draft him as a starting pitcher. He started in college. He has multiple pitches that he throws really well. He has the propensity to spin a baseball. So he gives you the opportunity to learn something new, try different grips, try and grow that arsenal to be a starter, right? At the big league level, you generally don't throw your fastball 65% of the time. You got to find a different mix. You got to have more than just 2 pitches that you are comfortable throwing. Tend to need to get to 3 or more to be a starter. But now look at Josh Hader. After all this time, he's one of the best left-handed closers in the league. Liam Doyle's splitter is gross, and I think we just didn't get to see enough of it this year because he didn't need to throw it. He could run the high fastball with a really high ride and strike out a ton of college batters. But when he needed it, he used it, and he struck out plenty of batters on that pitch just as much. But I really do like what you said about his mentality. There are some guys that just come into baseball and kind of take on that man in the arena, and they just kind of go into psycho mode. And Liam Doyle does that, and it is truly fascinating to watch.
Yeah, listen, here's my really good explanation of where I think they will go with Doyle. When I look at Liam Doyle at the next level as a starter, which Ben Joyce, everybody knows, high octane fastball, main thing he threw, probably right around that 65 plus percentile time. Why? Because he threw so hard. He got drafted 85th overall. He got drafted 89th overall. Okay. Wow, we wouldn't have Doyle here if we didn't think he could be a front end arm. Let's get that very solidly stated. You don't get ranked 6th on our draft board if we don't think you can't be a frontline starter. I look at Doyle, and when I see his mix and what I think they'll do with him, I see a guy, now he's from the right side, but I see a guy in Seattle and Luis Castillo, and that's the type of thing I see with Liam Doyle. I see a guy like Brian Wu, another guy we've already brought up today, who's got good ride on his fastball, who's throwing it an absurd amount of time at the big league level. I think that's what teams are going to see out of him. And then it's how do we make sure we properly mix around his absolutely elite fastball. Again, his floor is an elite closer. I have a feeling this guy's going to be a 1 to 2 in somebody's rotation for a very, very long time, and I'm really excited to see it.
I hope so. Well, this next guy on the board, I think is definitely going to be somebody's 1 or 2 for a very long time to come, because Jamie Arnold, when you look at what his true arsenal is, takes what Liam Doyle does and goes one level further. And what I mean by that is it's not just 2 pitches. He's got a little bit more in the arsenal. And why that is helpful, as I explained before, is it becomes a little bit less of a project. The project now becomes, how do we utilize said arsenal at the big league level to get hitters out? Not how do we generate more out of an arsenal, or how do we find more to add to an arsenal, and then how do we make that work against big league hitters or professional hitters. Now, the biggest difference you see here between a guy like Jamie Arnold and Liam Doyle is their respective leagues at the college level. The ACC is not a slouch league. It is a very, very, very difficult league. That being said, the level of hitter when you get further down the lineup in the ACC definitely packs a little bit less of a punch. And so some people do find there's a little bit of a knock on Arnold just because of competition level. We don't feel that way. When you see his profile, when you see the way he releases the ball, the way he hides the ball, when you start to break down some of his video, it's again a very, very polished and repeatable motion. It's very enjoyable to watch. And there are plenty of guys in the big leagues that are not enjoyable to watch, that are very successful, right? Like, it's not smooth, it's not comfortable, and that's what does them very well. But again, I want you to speak a little bit more on the arsenal, what's in there, what he likes to use, how he utilizes it. I know Jackson threw some notes in there for us as well.
Yeah, as somebody who also happens to come from the side and really enjoys making it that extremely uncomfortable for people, it's hard for me not to love Arnold. The joke around him is he's just the second coming of Chris Sale, and I don't know that people are going to be totally incorrect about that. He sports what truly is a very, very polished three-pitch mix. He's got a fastball, again, coming from a essentially fully sidearm slot that he runs up 94 to 95 sitting and can go all the way up to 97. It plays as a sinker because it has so much arm side run. 15 inches of horizontal break, right? If you position him correctly on the mound for lefties, they're going to hate every ball that ends up back into their hands. But listen, not only does he have command of a fastball that does all of that, he's got a changeup that just completely falls off the table. -5 IBB on his changeup. Guys hit to the tune of a 115 WOBA against that pitch, and it had a 50% whiff rate this year. Absolutely disgusting. It plays so well off of his fastball. And to boot, it's not like he just has one elite secondary offering. The slider that he sports going the opposite direction is also elite. Again, 11 inches of horizontal break, dips down 1 IVB, which tells me, and for anybody who's out there, he throws frisbees, guys. He throws frisbees is the easiest way to put it. Again, a 46% whiff rate on this pitch. He did show a cutter, and as a sidearm guy who has added a cutter to his own arsenal, I want everybody to understand what this would do for him and why I love the thought process of this being a sick fourth pitch for him. This would give him 2 pitches that run into a lefty and 2 pitches that run away from a lefty. The mental anguish as a hitter, when you have a guy who can command all 4 of those pitches, 2 going each direction, is hard to describe. His ability to keep people off balance at the next level is going to be wonderful to watch. And again, sitting 94 to 95 from a sidearm slot, I love Jamie Arnold. Take him in a heartbeat.
If you want to know why we say the second coming of Chris Sale is very dominant, and he does it utilizing mainly only 2 pitches, a fastball and a slider. And he mixes in a changeup there. The fact that he has 3 what is becoming elite pitches that he has immense feel and control over, and not even control, but like true command over to get the swing and miss that he gets, it may not be the same body coming at you, but the delivery is very similar. The way that he goes about attacking hitters, the slider, like you said, is gross. So very excited for Jamie Arnold. We had him in the top 5 because we just feel like from the left-hand side up against Liam Doyle, he's up there with some of the more polished arms. And real quick before I go to number 4, I saw in the chat, Andrew from Baseball Today asked Jack Bauer in the top 30. Jack Bauer came in at number 17 for us. And I'll jump real quick into this. It's an arm you can dream on. The fastball's electric, topped at 103. There's a lot to fix. And when I say fix, I mean just gain a little bit more control and command over with his off speed. There's a little bit to rein in as far as the body control goes. But part of that's just getting older and a little bit more comfortable with how big and fast his body moves. But we're big fans of Jack Bauer, have him much higher on our board than most people do because who doesn't want a kid that throws 103, right?
I totally agree. And it's funny, Andrew, asking that question. It is another one of those pieces for me where you look at him and he's throwing 102 or topping at 102, and he could still get down the mound a little bit more, which is a crazy.
Oh, the extension!
Statement,
the extension is so short right now. It's
comparatively.
Insane.
Yeah, dude, it's very impressive. Big fans of Bauer. Kid, yes, again, came in at 17 on our list.
Back to the top 10. Number 4 on the list, Iva Arquette out of Oregon State. And from a comfortability perspective, we keep harping on this. This might be the most comfortable guy on a baseball field. The way he goes about his business. I said this to Ryan. All things go perfect. My comp to him is Alex Rodriguez. When you watch how easily he puts the ball out of the ballpark the opposite way, when you watch how smooth and comfortable he is at shortstop with those long levers, it has a very Andrelton Simmons feel as a defender, but I think fits the profile of a younger A-Rod a little bit more for me. But the stuff is there. The kid is just so smooth. It never looks like he's got to do anything to get the ball out of the ballpark. It never looks like he's got to do anything to get the ball over to first base. The arm strength on balls in the hole, up the middle, the control of his body is so incredibly big league when you watch him do it in game. I mentioned to you there was a late game scenario where they were down a couple of runs in the College World Series and season on the line. And, he comes up and has to at least put a good at bat together, and like second pitch of the at bat, it's a hanging curveball, puts it out to left field. Like it's just another ho-hum game in the ballpark. That's a big field. That is a big stadium in a big time game. And it's just another run of the mill at bat for him. Gets a pitch to hit, puts good wood on it like he always does, runs around the bases and just keeps on moving. That's the type of stuff that you just kind of watch happen and you're like, he's not playing at the right level. This just isn't hard enough for him.
Yeah, there is no moment that is too big for Iva Arquette. I'm sorry. He is the coolest customer on our entire draft board, maybe other than there's one other guy who is just as cool of a customer, and we'll get to him a little bit later. But it's pretty impressive. I think what I like about him the most is there's so much to dream on with the size that he brings to the table.
Yeah, it's the frame.
He's done it already at a very high level. He's the kind of guy who, as much as we hate to say it, had he played this year in the SEC, he might be up a spot or two on the sport, and that's not really a fair thing to say. I kind of hate that.
He might be your consensus number one. If he goes and does what Aloy does in the SEC, 350, 20 plus bombs, I think he's your consensus number one.
I think you're probably right. Nothing defensively scares me about him. I think that his absolute floor is like 2017 Andrelton Simmons with like 5 to 10 more home run pop.
Give me some numbers there on the 2017 Andrelton
All right,
Simmons. I want to hear it.
2017. He slashed 278, 331, 421. Played a high level of defense, came in 8th in the MVP voting, and won a Gold Glove that year.
Sure.
Again, 38 doubles to 14 home runs. Listen, Iva's going to hit more than 14 home runs at the next level. Let's be really clear. But we're sitting here talking about a guy who played 11 years at the big league level. If that's your floor comp, you're doing something right, is how I look at it. But this guy has true 30-plus home run pop, no problem at all, and can stick at shortstop. How could you not have him in your top 5?
I think for me it's very similar to last year's draft with JJ Weatherholt. And Weatherholt fell a little bit because of injury, but like not a power 4 player as far as college goes, or not an SEC guy as far as college goes, and is maybe the most talented position player in the draft this year. Like in a way that is ready to go in the next couple of years or within the next year and a half.
I think it's really important for everybody who doesn't know. We're talking about a guy who lists at 6'5", 220, playing a legitimate shortstop, can stick there. Again, top 5 on our big board. If we can't dream on you, you shouldn't be here.
And it honestly probably won't get much bigger, right? You could probably see him being a 6'4", 225, but it's going to be 6'4", 225 of muscle. Not that it's not now, but college food's different than when baseball is your life. And when baseball becomes your life and your job, the level at which he's going to take his frame to, this is a guy that I really, really, really like. But we've got him at number 4. So there's 3 guys out there that we also are big fans of and very high on. So let's keep it moving and get our way to number 3. And number 3 is a guy with a little bit of pedigree. A little bit of pedigree. Ethan Holiday coming off the board at number 3. Now, when we talk about Ethan Holiday, you know, for a lot of folks, when Jackson Holiday got drafted and it's Matt Holiday's son, you look at Jackson Holiday and you go, he's a little smaller. That's not the same, you know, build and guy that Matt Holiday is. This is that guy. This is that build. Ethan Holiday is that build, but from the left side, and maybe even a little more athletic as a defender. You want to talk about dreaming on a kid? This right here. This is your Bobby Witt Jr. Gonna be your shortstop. Gonna be that for a very long time. Ink him to a deal before he plays a professional baseball or a big league baseball game, and hang on to him for a good bit. Build around this kind of guy. That's what you're expecting him to be, especially with the pedigree that he's got behind him.
Yeah, listen, when I look at him, I'll be honest, I think my only knock on him is I do expect him to end up being a corner infielder. That doesn't hurt my feelings because we're talking about an 18-year-old who lists at 6'4", 210 pounds. If you just watch him swing the bat one time and connect with the baseball, you get it. There's not really a question why he is a dream on type player. When I look at him and his frame and his athleticism, I think of a guy like Machado who did end up moving over to the third base side. I recognize we're talking about a left-handed bat here, but you bring up his dad, and I think it's really funny. Of the 2 brothers, he's the brother who got dad's size.
Oh, yeah.
No other way to put it. When this is the number 1 pick in the draft, regardless of where we have him on our board, it'll be the least surprising thing to happen in 2025. To me, when you take a guy at number 1, regardless of where you might rank somebody on a big board, if you can't dream on them being a Hall of Famer, you shouldn't have taken him at 1. It's just how I look at things. Holiday has, by far, more than likely, the highest ceiling in this draft. It's impressive what he can do with the bat, and the pop that he was showing at 16 years old was otherworldly to begin with, let alone the pop he shows at 18 years old. I'm excited for this one. The swing is just beautiful. Mm-hmm. I mean, his dad will probably tell you it's more beautiful than his swing. It's just part of being a lefty, I guess. You can tell his dad wanted them both to hit from the left side in some way, shape, or form. Just look at it.
That was a choice. There's no way that wasn't a choice.
Let's go, Matt Holiday. Appreciate you. But one of those guys whose ceiling is so high, I kind of leave it at I'm here to dream. And he deserves to be number 3 on this board.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a whole lot more to say about him, to be quite honest with you. It's not a name that anybody's unfamiliar with or shocked that's in our top 3. To be quite honest with you, I kind of fought you and Jackson a little bit more on how we broke out our top 3 here, because you guys are both a little bit more pitching heavy and I am a little bit more hitter heavy. But when you look at the scales of how guys tend to get taken, where the risk sits, high school position players, there's still a pretty good amount of risk that you're taking on for an 18-year-old and what they're going to be able to pan out and do and what their health is going to be, because a lot of it you don't see and they're still at such an immature stage physically.
we segmented out the top 3 guys on this board completely separate from everybody else, and we probably had a good 25-minute discussion on how we put these guys on the board. And I don't know that had we made these boards separately, anybody would have had the same number 1, and I think that's probably a good way to put it. As good as everybody else is on this board, when we really looked at upside potential, the top 3 on this board were the ones that we felt like had the highest possible ceiling. So very excited to talk about the next 2 guys as well.
Coming in at number 2, a right-handed pitcher from high school in California that everybody is very familiar with at this point, Seth Hernandez. Seth Hernandez is maybe one of the most polished right-handed high school arms that we have seen in the draft in a very, very, very long time. His ability to comfortably command 3 different pitches and at the high school level, because we talked about a guy like Jack Bauer, we talked in our thread last week and in our podcast last week about a guy like Cruz Schoolcraft, who again is a very polished lefty, about their ability to basically leverage fastballs at a high school level and dominate kids. And when you watch Seth Hernandez pitch at a high school level, he doesn't, not because he can't, but because he doesn't have to and he doesn't want to. And he's able to use everything he's got to absolutely spin kids in circles. And it's at a different level. And I think also just being a right-handed arm, we look at a kid like this and, you say this could be our ace. This is the kind of guy that you see get drafted, get very high every single year. There's always 1 or 2 of them. And that's one of the bigger reasons we kind of put him a little bit higher on our board.
So I'll go out on a limb, and I guess it puts my own reputation on it. And I would simply tell all of you that Seth Hernandez is, not might be, is the most polished right-handed pitcher we've ever seen come out of high school. I say that with my chest. I won't question that statement. You're looking at a guy who sports a mid-90s fastball, who already can throw it wherever the hell he wants. He can run it up to 98. He sports 3 pitches that are all plus or plus plus potential behind this fastball, including a 12-6 spiked curveball that spins at times 3,000 RPMs plus, a changeup that is the next best pitch in his arsenal that is already considered 70 grade plus plus due to the command he has with it and the run it carries arm side by many evaluators. And he has a hard slider that has the propensity to continue to get better because he is a guy who's shown he can spin the ball. And it's something he's already used in high-level showcases that I think will be leveraged at the highest level. No problem at all. The only knock on Seth Hernandez is that he's a right-handed high school pitcher. I don't know how else to put that to any of you. If he was left-handed, he'd be the number 1 guy on my board every day of the week. And that's only because, historically, the hardest thing to translate to the highest level is right-handed high school starting pitching. When you look at statistical probability, that is the toughest thing to get to translate to the highest level. That's a knock that Seth Hernandez can't even control, which I hate to say. But truly and utterly, he is the most polished high school pitcher I have seen in my 30 years on this planet, and I'll put my foot down on it.
I wish I had this a little bit sooner, but I think about guys like that we've talked about or that have throughout our lifetime have gone very early in the draft, that have been right-handed arms, have either not panned out or took a very long time to pan out. Guys I'm thinking about are like Lucas Giolito, Lance McCullers. When they were coming out, the talk on them was this idea of how good the stuff was. And I think the only difference here for us is it's not just about the stuff, it's about the true command of the stuff. Right? Those guys, Lance McCullers has been throwing a nasty curveball since he was 12 years old. Right? Like that's he's always had that. But the ability to dot fastballs in the mid to upper 90s as a high schooler like Seth Hernandez does, a curveball that spins 3,000 RPMs. We're talking about a guy who basically takes the professional level approach to pitching, which is tunnel the baseball, spin the hell out of it, and make everything look like the same thing until it's not at a high school level at a very high degree. It's so uncommon that I tend to fall in a similar bucket that this may be the best right-handed high school prep arm that we've seen ever come through the draft.
I'm very excited about the high school arms across the board in this class. We had Cruz Schoolcraft ranked at number 11. When you see both of them very quickly and at a very young age make their way through the minors from a pitching perspective, and they're on rosters very early, similar to a Jackson Jobe, maybe a really good comparison for people as a guy you've seen recently, it won't surprise me. We're talking about two guys who are low effort throwers with very simple, very repeatable mechanics and the ability to move the ball around the zone. Again, Hernandez just simply has 4 pitches already, and that is more unfathomable than many of you want to believe out of a high school guy to be able to do it at the level he does. So, again,
and I want to say this about Cruz Schoolcraft too, right? The only reason he didn't crack our top 10, the only reason is there was, I guess the two reasons. There was a propensity, like I said at the beginning of the show, of college shortstops to move their way up the board and kind of knock him out of our top 10, right? A guy like Ivar kept doing what he did, Wahiva Loy doing what he did. And there were left-handed college arms that worked their way up the board. And so that moves us to number 1. And if you don't know who it is, welcome out from under the rock, Cade Anderson out of LSU. Cade Anderson jumps ahead of Seth Hernandez in this purely because he is a college pitcher. Purely because the investment that you're making on the number 1 overall pick is going to benefit you in the very near future. It's not as much of a work in progress. What Cade Anderson brings to the table as a left-handed arm is in that class of the most elite pitchers in college baseball this year. He is one of, if not the biggest reason why LSU won their 8th national championship. He has an incredible pitch mix. I'm going to let you dive into it a little bit more, Ryan. But it's a combo that could already be good enough to play at the next level at this rate. And we don't say that about a lot of guys, but it has happened very quickly for some guys because the stuff in the command over it is just so good, and he falls into that group for us.
Absolutely. You're talking about another guy in this draft that has 4 legitimate pitches, all of them grade 55 or higher. He has command of all of those pitches as well. Somebody asked me the other day, well, he had a 5-walk game in the College World Series. Well, that's what happens when you're facing really good hitters. They're going to force you into the zone, and you're going to have to nibble a little bit more. Didn't stress me out at all. But this guy, again, fastball, changeup, slider, curveball. The fastball, we talked about it with every single guy who is on our board right now. Excellent ride on the fastball, okay? Anybody who's coming from over the top, it is very well known at this point that if you can make sure you spin the ball well and have an IVB that can sit somewhere in the low 20s, you're going to be loved for it. He's another guy who's a 19-plus IVB. Fastball does a great job of riding it at the bottom of the zone from the left side, something you've heard Flax talk about a ton. His slider is a great secondary pitch. It can be a little bit of a baby sweeper. It's got a 7 IVB and 7 horizontal break and a -1 IVB. So it does really cut across the plate. His changeup and his curveball are both excellent secondary pitches, and they play nicely off of his fastball. And what makes the curveball so good is it has a similar movement profile to his slider, but is a good bit slower, allowing him to really keep hitters off balance and show them a pitch that looks somewhat similar coming out of the hand from a spin perspective. Each of his pitches had high whiff percentages. He's probably the easiest guy to take at 1 is where we're going with this. as long as he doesn't get derailed by injuries. Him being any worse than a 3 would shock me. My comp for him is Max Fried. I see Max Fried every time he takes the ball. When you look at the curveball, which can continue to be at times even more depthy, everything comes out of his hand in the same slot. He rides the fastball well and is willing to throw it anywhere in the zone. I see a guy who's not afraid to throw his stuff and will continue to progress.
And if anyone thinks that's too low of a ceiling, that's the guy who has the largest contract ever by a left-handed starting pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like we said, if you're going to take a guy number 1, he's going to be number 1 on your big board. If you can't dream on him, you're doing something wrong. Another guy who, when he is in a major league uniform in 2026, it's going to be the least shocking thing that happens in the entire year.
Yep, couldn't agree more. I'm very excited. We got through our first top 30 big board, our first Baseball Unstitched top 30 big board. We are going to do a draft recap, or at least a round 1 recap, given timing and availability
We like to talk. It turns
of
out.
next week's episodes. We will go through, probably recap the top 10 draft picks, maybe the top 15, depending on timing on next week's episode. That'll drop on Tuesday. This will hit the airwaves. If you didn't get to listen to the whole thing and our thoughts on everyone, tonight it will be up and out there on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And please comment on all of these tweets that we put out, all these shows. We want to hear your thoughts. We like having discussions on them. I know everybody's got a different big board. I talked to a couple of people in DMs this week that put together their own big boards, and the sentiment was all the same. If you have a process and you have a reason, your big board's never wrong. You just have to have a good reason for why you put anybody anywhere. And I think that we do a pretty good job of defending where we've put these guys. All this to say, if you get drafted top 10, you're pretty good at baseball.
Yeah, happy to have done it. We appreciate all of you. Continue to hang around the Baseball Unstitched X. Don't forget to take a listen to the actual podcast on your favorite platform, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. Looking forward to the draft this weekend. We hope you are as well.